It feels like so many years of waiting. Our head of youth development, Emmett Doran's job was very much on the line this year. He had to deliver or face the axe. And oh boy, did he deliver. Right now, over on stream, we are, of course, doing the transfer window. This year, though, we have a budget of £50 million to spend. And because we've been so financially responsible over the last year, we may actually be able to spend a nice little chunk of it. So come and help me spend it after you watch this video. And the VODs of all the streams can, of course, be found on the second channel, linked in the description. They go up a day after each stream. That intro wasn't too bad, actually. I suppose it could have been worse. Could have been this. In other news, the other Hungarian sides will, of course, still be in action. Molfeheva need to get their fingers into their asses. That's not what they want to do at all. That's just, given what we know now, that's the exact opposite of what we want. But for now, Season 10 of Building a Nation with MTK Budapest was supposed to be a big step forward. The points reset for this season had basically wiped out the gap between us and 6th place Portugal, meaning that if we could just put together a solid, if unspectacular season and they didn't pull up any trees, we'd be able to leapfrog over them into 6th spot, but most importantly, get ourselves an extra European spot for a team in the Hungarian league, bringing us to a total of 6. But before any of that, let's talk about transfers out, because there have actually been some familiar names and long-serving players that have left the club to pastures new over the course of this season. So let's jump in. And the first of those players was Stanislav Suhi. Now, the situation with him was very simple. Last year, we talked about the fact that we'd had a huge bid for him of £100 million, and I just couldn't bear to sell him off stream, basically, because I didn't think it was fair. And unfortunately, though, we were never going to be able to get the same kind of money. We got in a massive fight with him, and with 1 year left on his deal, the only choice we really had was to move him on for the best price that we could get. And that price was, well, £25 million instead of 100 million, but it was to Benfica. His stock had clearly fallen a lot over the course of that year. So yes, we lost out on some money. We still made a big profit on him though, and that was the most important thing, because we knew that we had other players waiting in the wings that we felt could take over and do a fine job in our front line. So to get the £25 million was a good move for us. And then on the final day of the summer transfer window came a very surprising move, and that was Dortmund just randomly plonking an enormous amount of money on the table for Flavian Moors. Now he's, of course, or had been at the club for a very long time now, one of our original Belgian amateur players that we picked up. So any money would have been good, but it's the fact that they went straight in with like £16 million, and I just kind of went, well, that's probably good, but let's see how much I can take them for a ride for. And boy did we. £28 million for Flavian Moors. Now he's earning moon money at Dortmund, and fair play to him. I'm glad that he's able to get that. Had a lovely career here, was with us for 6 years, but the thing is, since he's joined Dortmund, over the course of this entire season, he's started just 1 game for them and made only 4 appearances. Next is a transfer out that I imagine you were completely not expecting. João Virginia, our long-standing hero of a goalkeeper, and I still stand by the fact that he is a hero of a goalkeeper, did brilliantly in the Champions League for us, got those 2 Portugal caps while he was here too. But over the last 18 months, he had just kind of not performed. Last year, he'd struggled a little bit, and this year he'd been off to a pretty poor start as well. And when the bid came in from Al Hilal for £23.5 million, for, you know, it's 32, but he's not super old for a goalkeeper still, I felt that maybe now was the time, because I didn't want him to ruin his legacy at the club by having a horrible few seasons and then being sold in ignominy. I figured he could ride off into the sunset, earn loads of money, and still be thought of as a hero here. This is the best illustration of the situation right now, the advanced goalkeeping stats. I don't normally do this, but I figured for now we would. You can see that João Virginia, actually at this point, this is under the league numbers, of course, was at minus 2.5 and only a 63% save rate, and that was poor. Bear in mind, this was like the middle of November, and we'd played like 10 league games, if not more at that point. Lucas, however, his replacement, has come in, well, he's actually at 1.1 now after a little bit of a poor finish, but 90.74, and has done a fantastic job. And the last big and well-known out of the season was Brahim Diaz. He'd been at the club again for quite a long time. I think he was actually entering potentially his 7th season at the club. Picked him up on a free transfer. I think we got his best years out of him. And when Porto said, do you know what? We fancy giving you a lot of money for him. 16.25 million for a 32-year-old Brahim Diaz. I was willing to do that. Diaz had already slipped down the pecking order. He was miles behind Navarro this season and was actually coming under threat from other players too. So it felt like now would be the perfect time to cash in and basically rake in nearly £100 million in transfers just from those guys, really financing this season and getting the club back on a nice, even footing. It's now time to jump into the players that we actually have picked up this season, because I think we've picked up some absolutely brilliant signings this year. Spent a little bit of money where it was needed, but there's still some bargains. First up, a quick one. Pascal was brought in from Sevilla for 425k, really solid centre-back, already worth 12 to 18 million pounds, out on loan at Debrecen, doing a wonderful job this season. I think it was a mad deal that he was worth. He was only as little as that. I don't think he's ever going to play for us probably, but there's a hell of a player here. And now for probably our most expensive signing out of the window, still one we're very much on the fence about. This is Hurley, otherwise known as Hugo Reyes, 12 million pounds from Club America. Now looking at his attributes, you'd think, yeah, there's a player there really is. And I think this year he's just had a struggle settling in a little bit, not with homesickness and stuff like that. It's just taken him a while to get used to the team. He started 21 matches, 5 off the bench. Just the 7 goals, though, and 4 assists there. He's definitely underperformed in both metrics, really. He should have, like, doubled the number of assists that he has. That's an issue for later to talk about, and less goals as well. He's definitely regularly put in some very, very poor performances in matches. But when discussing this, we actually came to the conclusion that Brandon Silva took a full year to really settle in properly, and so did Alberto Melero. So I'm hoping that next year Hurley's going to have a breakout season for us and be a real threat. Next up, Nemanja Janishevic. We finally found a giant Serbian centre-back. For those of you that have watched me for a long time, you know that essentially it isn't really one of my saves unless I have a giant 6 foot 1,000 Serbian centre-back, and we've got him. This is Nemanja. Obviously, he's gone out and learned a Kekschmidt right now. 6'5" with 16 jumping reach, a bit of pace to him as well. Still only 18 years old. Great tackling, marking, positioning. Just needs to work on that heading a little bit. And speaking of centre-backs, we also dropped 3.9 million on Miguel Benavides from San Lorenzo. And you can sort of see once again why. Just solid temp holes, only 18 years old. Next is a signing we're a little bit more pleased with. This is Brian Bizarma, another of the graduates from the Catholic Daddies. Again. Now, he's 21 years old, 3 caps for Chile at this point. He's mostly been brought in as a backup striker / advanced midfielder that can kind of just do a bit of everything. The idea with him wasn't that he was going to produce magic for us this season, just that he'd get a few games, be happy with his squad status as a fringe player, and just be able to generate things when we needed him. And he's done that this year. 3 goals for us, all in the cup, admittedly. Then we have Jonas Jurslid joining us from Rosenborg for £3.6 million, and another player that's really designed to be that sort of attacking midfield role. Hasn't had much of a game time this season, got injured very soon after joining us in a freak domestic accident. I hate to cast aspersions on him, but man has absolutely pulled a hammy having a mad shagging session, hasn't he? A freak accident indeed. Coincidentally, he also broke his bed's headboard in the same accident. How weird and convenient for you. Then we dropped 3.3 million on Christian Pedersen, mostly just because he was very, very well rounded, and we figured that we could maybe make something of that. Potential's not as good as we were hoping, but I still think there's an excellent player here. He's another one that's joined Debrecen on loan. This is Kamil Kraus, 19 years old now, but he was 18, which means he'll be a homegrown player for us upon signing for 7.25 million from Victoria Pilsen. But for me, we needed a backup anchor role. We needed someone that was going to be able to play when Velasquez wasn't available. That was the key thing for us. Good physicals, solid mentals, he can tackle, he can mark, he can do a bit of everything. He's worth 20 to 27 million pounds already. Last signing of note actually was Duvan Donzolo, who we picked up for 900,000 pounds from PSG. We agreed to sign him on a contract at the end, decided that to pay the £900 to get an extra backup centre-back wasn't the end of the world. But that actually does conclude things, transfers in and out-wise, surprisingly small this time. There's a few free transfers for the loan farm, but as usual, they just sort of get lost in the mire, so to speak. But now, on the tactics side of things, the only change we have made this year was to swap our 2 midfield roles over so that our anchor is now on the more attacking side of the pitch to give us a bit more balance. And we do think it's made a difference. It's hard to really say, but that's the only change we've made there. As for the league itself, it's been a fairly straightforward year, but also a weirdly not straightforward year, as we lost like 2 of our first 4 matches, I think it was. We really got off to a very, very poor start and actually had to pull ourselves back quite a deficit. In the end, we won the league by a large margin, but it was a very, very strange season. There was a point in it where we were actually negative 14 on goals scored in terms of our XG. We were just having game after game after game where we just could not score to save our life. It was mental. We were still able to win the games, but we'd be winning 1-0 with an XG of like 5.5. It was actually kind of mad the number of chances we were missing. Ferencváros comfortably sitting in second in there as well. Molfehérvár and Kisvárda qualifying for the Conference League 2, which is what we wanted, and Újpest qualifying for the Europa League despite coming 6th after winning in the cup final against us. So fair play, the first side to win that cup in about 6 years that wasn't us. And speaking of things that are good, this year we moved into our brand new stadium, the 19,142 capacity Beng.com Arena, straight in the heart of Budapest. There's a lot of things to be said for it, and I'm very, very pleased with it. Hopefully we can get it expanded at some point to really boost things, but we have been filling it out a lot of the time, even with some league games now, which is really, really good. One more thing on the domestic front, Girmont actually win the league very, very comfortably, finally, but Meškovec coming second there. Look at that. Istvan Petroso, 39 goals in the second tier for them. He's done that now twice for them in this save, 39 second tier goals. He had 39 after like 30 games though, which is the worst thing. And you'll also note that behind him, Evan Polden with 32 goals for Pakshi, as they don't get promoted despite their 2 strikers combining for 53 goals this season, and they don't even get promoted. Bear in mind as well, Turkey isn't even a striker, he's an attacking midfielder. So great season from him, actually won player of the year, but Pakshi remain in the second tier. But that is enough about that. Let's start to talk about the big one, and that is European football this year. Of course, much like the last few seasons, we have gone straight into the league phase. So let's jump into that, which is exactly what we did. Melero gave us the lead at home to Newcastle, the Europa League winning side Newcastle, before Alexander Isak got them the equaliser, and a little bit disappointing, honestly. They had the one big chance in the game, and that was Isak's goal, so not a great start when you consider how good we are at home. What followed was one of the most outrageously bizarre games of FM we've had in a long time. So we actually shot into an incredibly good 2-0 lead very early on in this game, with 2 goals from Castillo. We then got a penalty, which was missed, and the moment the penalty was missed, I said to chat, I guarantee this game goes to 2-2. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, with Andreas Tulberg scoring in the 56th and 73rd minute. The worst thing about them is both goals were mistakes. One was Raul Virginia literally just giving the ball straight to the striker directly in front of him, and the second one was our defender heading the ball to the side into the way of an on-running striker instead of just passing it to the goalkeeper with his head, who's right there. Very bizarre. But luckily, we were then able to go back in front again through Malero in the 81st minute before Okan Öztürk found another equaliser for Bayern in the 89th minute. And we just kind of had enough at that point. But then somehow, Castillo completed his hat-trick in the 93rd minute to give us the win. And then Navarro added another one to make it 5-3 in Germany. And boy, did we rally from that. Very fortunate, I would say, to win the next game. Navarro with the goal right on half-time gave us a 1-0 victory in Portugal. All of a sudden, things were looking much better. And things didn't stop there, as we then hammered Dinamo Zagreb 3-0 with Castillo, Fernandes and Malero, the European specialist, yet again mudding them. And suddenly we're on 10 points after 4 matches. Then there was more good news. Another victory over a Portuguese side, which was very key for us as in our hopes to leapfrog them. 3-0 again. Navarro, Castillo, Fernandes doing the business. 3-0 win. Flying. 13 points on the board. And we then nearly pulled off an absolutely wonderful result. Navarro yet again had given us the lead before Vinicius Jr. in the 86th minute pulled out a late equaliser for Madrid. And it's a shame because I think we were probably the better side in this game. But then you could say the same thing for Porto in their game. So I'd say it's about right. It balances out in that one. But that then made it 4 consecutive matches against Real Madrid without a defeat. We were really starting to feel ourselves. Then sadly things took a little bit of a downturn at the Johan Cruyff Arena. Malero yet again gave us the lead before a late Sky Vink free kick basically gave Ajax their only real... Yeah, I mean, they had some shots, but we didn't really see any of them. We absolutely should have won this game as well. It's despite some fortunate results in places, I still feel like we could have had more points, but that left us unbeaten after our first 7 Champions League matches, which was then turned into 8 as we went to Ukraine and made very light work of it. A hat-trick for Castillo, Silva and Velázquez doing the business, absolutely destroying them, which in the end led to us getting our highest ever finish in the Champions League. We had a 4th place several years ago, but that was a bit of a fluke. This time round, very different story. 3rd in the Champions League, no defeats, 5 wins, 20 goals scored, only 6 conceded and a plus 14 goal difference. Only Liverpool and Real Madrid could match us. Liverpool with the 1 goal conceded is kind of mad. But the point is we are right up there in the upper echelons now and looking in a league of our own there with 18 points, our best ever result. And our reward was to play against RB Leipzig in the round of 16. And we felt this was a real shot at reaching the quarterfinals for the first time since we literally reached the final. And what a weird game it was. 2 first half goals from Velázquez and Navarro gave us a very comfortable lead. And we were playing very well. It might not look like it, but believe me, in the second half, Leipzig just came out the traps and Jonas Eifeld absolutely destroyed us. 2-2. They probably could have won this match, honestly. It was bizarre how much we just shut off in the second half. Luckily, things got a little bit more sensible in the second leg as we remembered exactly who we were. Brandon Silva and 2 more goals from Guillermo Navarro, who has actually had an underrated ball-in season in the Champions League this year. Gave us a 3-0 and 5-2 victory respectively, moving us through to the Champions League quarterfinals. And we felt confident because we drew Real Madrid. Now, as good as they are, we had not lost a game to them in our last 4 attempts, which has always got to mean something. And we played well, which is more than can be said for the first leg as we fell to a 2-0 defeat. Just typical, isn't it? Really kind of even game, and we lose 2-0 to Real Madrid right when it matters, and we just need these performances to actually mean something. We go and bottle it at home to Real Madrid, knowing that we'd had to go to the Burnabout and get a result to have any chance. And sadly, it just was not to be. Despite Navarro, yet again, giving us the lead in the Champions League, Nuno Mendes was able to get the equaliser for Real Madrid, and fairly so. It was a great finish from him. They were the better side. We just couldn't quite do it against them over 2 legs here. It's still only 1 defeat in 6 games to Real Madrid, but we didn't deserve it. On the balance of the tie, when you combine both, I would say that Real Madrid were the deserved winners. But that gets us back to a quarter-final. I think we're definitely building and showing that we've got a lot more fight and are very much in it against a lot of the very big sides, with the occasional like floppy performances like this. Coming to the big part, and that is how did our other Hungarian sides get on? Now, much like last year, all of them swept through to the group stages of various competitions extremely easily this time around, with 2 in the Conference League, 2 in the Europa League. Very good stuff. And oh boy, is it starting to show. Ferencváros came 4th in their Europa League group. They were ahead of PSV, Feyenoord, Hertha, Real Sociedad, Everton, Lille. There's so many sides they finished above, and they got some good results, despite admittedly having some easier games at times. But, they beat Maribor, Nordsjælland, Sparta Prague, Boda, and Braga. 4 home wins. They won every home game. Very important. For Molfehavar, it was a little bit more of a struggle, coming 17th in the end with 13 points, but they had to really rally towards the end and get things done. But they did manage to win against Galatasaray and Nordsjælland at home, and they also beat Braga and BK Häcken away. They then drew Lille in their next round and managed to get a draw this time instead of the defeat, with Fabian pulling out a goal for them. But it just wasn't enough, as they actually did get a 0-0 draw in France, but then lost on penalties. So they were the first Hungarian side to fall out, and obviously Ferencváros weren't playing yet at this point. But they did at least get some coefficient points for us by grabbing draws in both legs, and could have even snuck through. Ferencváros, on the other hand, drew Eintracht Frankfurt and got the worst possible start with a 3-1 defeat in Germany. Bruno Alves' goal gave them a little bit of hope, and bugger me, they so nearly did it. Aguilar and Ulbert's goals got them the result they needed to take it to extra time, and then it was a penalty shootout in which they somehow lost 2-1 on penalties. 2-1. But it's the Conference League where things really get interesting. Top of the table, Kisvárda. They won 5 of their 6 games in the Conference League. I could not believe the results they were getting. Beat Levski, Napredak there, AEK. They beat Maccabi Tel Aviv. They beat EFK Göteborg. Now, not fantastically strong sides, but Kisvárda were by far the weakest side that we had in Europe, but they were just killing it. Újpest as well, qualifying with 4 wins out of their 6 games too. Won 3 of their home games against Astana, Rijeka and Panathinaikos, 1 away at Tuzla. But as a result of top 8, it meant both of our sides got to progress straight to the round of 16. And that's when things start to really get good. A Papafei hat-trick for Újpest gave them the 3-2 victory in Bulgaria against CSKA Sofia. Kisvárda, with goals from Merla and Barwick, got them a 2-1 win away at Sturm Graz. Sturm Graz have been a Champions League side in this save, so it was mad to get a result like that. And then they sunk it home in the second leg too. Újpest with the 4-1 victory, hammering their way through, 4-2 for a 7-4 win. And Kisvárda, despite getting the draw, still progressed by 4 goals to 3, and they both reached the quarterfinals of the Europa Conference League. Really, really strong to see. And when you look at the way the field was starting to thin out a little bit, you just wondered if there was a pathway. They drew each other in the next round, incredibly. And in the home leg, Újpest won, Kisvárda 2. Kisvárda still holding tight to being a genuinely good side in there. And in the second leg, that team was Újpest. They managed to win it on penalties in the end, with Marinov getting the equaliser, and they go to the semi-finals. But you'll notice something else. Heerenveen knocked out West Ham on penalties, and Konyaspor knocked out Villarreal, meaning that the final 4 for the Conference League this year was Újpest, Heerenveen, Bologna, and Konyaspor. What a Final 4 that was, and would you believe it? Újpest got to play against Bologna in the next round. A Radojicic goal in the 52nd minute of the home leg gave them a 1-0 victory, leading to them being just 90 minutes away from a Conference League final, which they then only went and bloody reached. Another goal from Radojicic in the second leg meant that they won both legs and found their way to become only the second Hungarian side in this save to reach a European final, and they'd face Konyaspor of Turkey, surely having a wonderful opportunity to become the first team in this save from our league to actually win a piece of European silverware. And we watched the game live on stream, of course, and this happened. Konyaspor 3, Újpest 2. They had a terrible start, gave up 2 goals in really quick succession off of basically Konyaspor's first 2 attacks. They then dominated most of the rest of the match before Radojicic got them back into the match just after half-time. They were then pressuring before a stupid decision gave away a penalty. Konyaspor scored the penalty before Újpest got another one back through Marinov in the 83rd minute, and we thought they could do it. They were pressuring. It was basically all them for the entire game, but it wasn't enough, and they had some chances late on that they missed. It was a huge chance for Radojicic in this game as well. They should have done better, honestly. This was a huge opportunity for them, but nevertheless, to have a Hungarian side finally in a final that wasn't us was a really big step forward, and I think it really does show what we're building here, because this is how the coefficients for the season itself looked. Spain on 22, England on 21.9, but then Hungary 19.7. Best year we've ever had in the entire save, and it was the 3rd best year of any team this season. We came 3rd overall, and that's a huge deal to be finishing above the Germans and the Italians in there too, and miles above the French, like over 6 points clear of the French this season. And as far as the provisional coefficient, well, I mean, look, we've absolutely mudded Portugal. We came into this season kind of neck and neck with them, and we've gained nearly 7 points on them, and we're actually only 7 behind France now. That, to give you an idea of where that's gone. Scotland have had a woeful year with a 4.8 as well, so they've completely lost the plot. So all in all, an insanely exciting season for everybody involved, and I'm really, really glad that we got to share that together. Hopefully things can be onwards and upwards from here, and we can continue on this trajectory. I think within the next 5 years we're going to see a Hungarian side win a European trophy, and I don't think it's going to be us. Emmett Doran, our beloved head of youth development, wonderful player from the Treaty save. He's been in the job now for, well, nearly 10 years, and lately it's been terrible. Season after season of 1-star youth intakes with players that are just crap. Now, obviously, our team is very good, so it's going to take a little bit for a player to be there, but we do still have the best everything in the entire country, and we would have expected to see a little bit every now and then from someone. So we said to him, your contract's up at the end of this season. If you don't generate us a player with 3.5-star potential, i.e., the white star at least is what we're using here, then you're not getting extended, and we're hiring Todd Cantwell as our new head of youth development, and he's rubbish. He actually went and bloody did it. Not only that, he actually got 2 players that would have sufficed, with Petr Joinier as well, but we're not going to talk about him. We're here to talk about Zoltan. He generated at 15 with 2-star current ability in this team, a team that is capable of reaching the latter stages of the Champions League. Didn't quite have that 5-star potential there, but it's kind of fluctuated. I have seen it hit it, but then it kind of goes away, as you know how these things can be. Still, an absolute monster of a player, because he looks like this. This is he. This is Zoltan. Still only 15. He was playing games for us already he was not even 15 and a half years old at that point. Just absolutely brilliant player. He's good on both feet. He's got wonderful mentals, aggression, bravery, teamwork, work rate. Physicals are great, minus the natural fitness. He will retire at the age of 27. He's here for a good time, not a long time. Great tackling. I just think he's an absolute worldie, and there's no way for me that he doesn't get into the Hungarian national team later in his career. Fairly ambitious, solid determination. He's actually started 7 games and made 4 substitute appearances for us already. On the stats for this season, you can see Castillo top scorer with 39 goals this season, which isn't bad. And Navarro with 21 goals and 6 assists. What a year he's had. Malero, once again, contributing the usual amount. 12 assists, 15 goals. Silva, not too bad as well. 12 goals, 12 assists. Really, really good. Francois Xavier Hardy, you'll notice he's come back. I recorded him from his loan spell at Budapest because he wasn't playing, and he's our record signing, and we kind of wanted to give him a chance. First thing he did was score 5 goals in a cup game, and he has managed 13 goals for us this season, mainly playing as a substitute. Just no real standouts this year. Nobody's really been able to overachieve by much. I would say Navarro has actually been the biggest overachiever this year, and has been probably player of the year for me, is Guillermo Navarro, by a country mile. When you consider that he scored 8 goals in 10 Champions League matches this season, which is actually ridiculous. 11 in, 20 in the league, but 8 goals in the Champions League. He basically carried us on his back, him and Malero anyway. Still only 23 with 59 caps. As for the 118 players out on loan, I mean, it's been a bit of a mad year, really. Most assists, of course, Christian Leon there with 12 for Kishvada, which is really good. And Merla, though, 50 appearances. 11 assists and 23 goals is genuinely insane. And Gurkan Turkey as well. 10 assists and 21 goals. Won player of the year in the 2nd division. Top scorer, of course, was Evan Polden with 36. But Papa Fay with 29 for Budapest in there as well. Awona with 21 for Molfehevar. Aguilar with a bit less than you might expect. And also, Joshua De Bruyne. Wow. The 2 best for me out on loan is obviously Joshua De Bruyne. Look at the state of him right now. 4 caps for South Africa, no goals yet. He just continues to surprise and astound me. He's a wonderful player that could well be one for us. But even more so than him is Robert Trzekiewicz, or Bobby Tree as we've been calling him. He's gone to the Euros with Poland as well now. 8 appearances for them and 3 goals. He is an absolutely ridiculous looking striker. And if he carries on developing at this rate, he might actually give Castillo a run for his money. Despite that, only 13 goals this season for Debrecen. But still, I think if he stays there for another couple of years, he's a world-class player, potentially in the making, if he continues to improve at the rate that he is going. He's insane. But yeah, really, really good year for us in terms of getting the bank balance back from where it was, down on the brink in the 20 millions, which is worrying about the board, to all the way up here, and feeling a little bit more confident about things as we go forward, which means we get to spend a bit more money this time around. And that's always going to be fun, because we've got an enormous amount of players joining us. We've got loads more money to spend, so hopefully you will join us over there for that. The aim this year is just to keep on plugging away, try to have another season like we did this year. Hopefully another Hungarian side will do absolute mad business in various different European competitions. So if you've enjoyed this, drop a like, that'd be fantastic. Join me over on stream. And, I don't know, ask us about some of the signings we've got coming in, because there's a couple that I'm really proud of and I've already forgotten who they are. I'll see you guys soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.
For example, you don't just go handing out hand jobs willy-nilly. Although, if anything is willy-nilly, that certainly would be. But we have had a distinct lack of that.